And welcome back to episode number 87 of Raise the Banner podcast. We're back after a little 2 week hiatus. It's been a busy few weeks for us, but we are back for a little mix up of a 9 a.m. Friday morning episode. A little bit, everybody had to take some time out of work, but we did so because we have a special guest coming to join us soon. None other than WEI's Fitzy. You probably know him from around the Patriots world, but he will be joining us shortly. We're going to start off with a little bit of Red Sox, but as usual, it is Zach Brewitt, Benny Ballgame Dearth, myself, McIntyre. Ben is joining us from his car as he takes a little hiatus from work today. He's got the golf bag in the back seat. Ready to hit 9 holes after work. I can see.
That's left over from last night.
I saw you had a tough first hole, but I didn't check after that. How did you finish?
It was all right. I hadn't swung a golf club in 2 weeks, so it was a little rusty in the beginning. I was a little flustered because I went to the range and prepared like how I took my practice shots as if I was playing the back nine, and then the course was like, actually, you aren't allowed to play the back nine anymore because the rest of the season we're playing off the front. So my entire mentality was off, and I didn't practice any shots for how to play the front, which you don't play it the same way you play the back. So it was a little bit of a rough start, but it is what it is. Didn't really mean much of anything because playoffs are in a few weeks. It was just the last day of the season. We'd already paid for it, so
fair
to get more or less a practice round in, so we're good.
Fair enough. I did a 4v4 scramble on Monday, and the amount of times that now we're all like amateur golfers. One or two of us are not very good, but we won't get into names. But anyways, the amount of times that like we would all hit very mediocre shots, or like three of us would hit insane shots, and it's like on the same shot, and it's like, why can't you spread this out? It's infuriating. We had one of them where we were like 100 yards out, and three of us put it within like 8 feet of the hole, and it was like can we do this? Like, can we separate this, hold the hole, and not do that? Because then the next hole we're 100 feet out, and the closest someone puts it is like on the edge of the green, 45 yards away. It's infuriating. But all right, let's just jump right into this. Boston Red Sox, they have been, as a whole, pretty damn good. They are I think, is it 16 games over 500 or 15 right now? They hit a 16-game high.
Yeah, 15 over 500.
15 over 500, yep. They had not a very pretty ugly loss to Cleveland the other day to end the series, but they have been playing some pretty good baseball. Obviously, Roman Anthony is the big storyline right now. He is out with an injury. He is seemingly going to be out minimum 4 weeks, maximum 6 weeks. The 4-week timeline puts him right around the start of the playoffs. The 5-ish week timeline puts him more closer to the start of the ALCS. Where are your current active, up-to-date thoughts on this team right now, and how you're feeling heading into this final month? I believe there's 21 games left in the season. Obviously, they are in the hunt of the wild card race, and they are also really only, I think, 2 or 3 games back from the Blue Jays. Do you think the division's in play? How are you feeling altogether, Ben?
The division's in play, so I have it in front of me. They're 3.5 back with their loss last night. 7-3 in their last 10, so they're in good shape. It's interesting. I kind of go back and forth because I feel like with this Red Sox team, this take is going to be pre-Roman Anthony injury. I had felt that they seem to play better with momentum, so I kind of almost felt like, okay, maybe they're better off being the number one wild card team because they can immediately go right into playing. Playoffs, I think, start September 30th, I believe, is the first day of the wild card. I don't know if it's both wild cards or just one or the other. But I kind of felt like, okay, they play better with momentum. I don't want them to sit around. Recent history would indicate that the top wild card teams, or at least the teams that play the first round, not the first two rounds, tend to fare pretty well relative to other years. So just I had kind of hoped thought maybe it'd be better for them to get the number one wild card spot, host a team at home for 3 games. But with the injury, I kind of feel like just getting a chance to reset the entire roster for a couple extra days and then wait out the wild card round might be the better move. I feel that, there's a little bit of up and down with some of the guys. Obviously, Giolito's been more good than bad, but, he can have a blow up start. I feel like they're in a decent spot, but they're playing well. The division's certainly in play. I mean, obviously they've got 3.5-ish weeks. Toronto's kind of playing okay, but they're not completely falling off the wagon to a point where I feel like it's wildly realistic. But, could they catch them? Sure. But being healthy, having the pitching, and then hopefully getting Roman Anthony back ASAP is going to be key for a postseason run for them.
Absolutely. Zach?
I think my feelings and thoughts are a little bittersweet. As Ben said, losing Roman Anthony obviously you're probably losing him for the rest of the year. You're making the playoffs. That being said, they have like a 99% chance, 98% chance last time I checked of the playoffs. But without Roman Anthony, without even Willie Abreu for that matter, it sounds like his calf injury has taken forever to come back from. Without one of those two players, the chance of like a semi-deep run are dwindling. And then, Crochet got roughed up in his last start against Cleveland. They won the game ultimately. The great sign. Sedon comes through again. But, kind of similar to how we talked about Tanner Houck last year, Garrett Crochet is at his his innings, career high. So what happens with him going forward? Do they skip a start with him? Like, there's definitely a lot to be excited about with this team. Obviously, making the playoffs, as we said, first time in 3-4 years or whatever. But losing Anthony is obviously a crushing blow. The news coming out about Bregman possibly opting out and leaning towards that way kind of leaves you with like a bit more uncertainty at that position and his leadership, his bat in the lineup. But for the remainder of the season, like I said, it's the division's still in play. It's not going to be a make or break without Roman Anthony in the lineup, but certainly it's going to be more of these grinded out type games. And we'll see what happens in the playoffs if they do ultimately get that top spot and have home field advantage. Or go to New York, or worst case, go to Seattle. But yeah, bittersweet is the way I would describe it. Like I said, losing Anthony, the Bregman news, uncertainty with the rotation, but also we're 90% chance making the playoffs. So that's a great spot to be in too. First time in a long time.
Yeah, and they're 4.5 clear of Seattle. So I don't know how it would all work out because Seattle's 3.5 out of the division. So I feel like the third wild card spot would be a really tough spot to finish in. Having to go probably to Houston. I would not feel super confident in that. I feel like because of how they played against the Yankees, obviously hosting them at Fenway is a much more ideal scenario. But the first alternative to not hosting the wild card round would be going to New York. I don't love the idea of them having to go to Houston, which is a tough place to play. I don't know I'd have to look it up. I don't know what the record is against Houston this year, but just given the fact that the Sox are kind of in the Yankees' head, and the Yankees are a team that if they're not hitting home runs, they don't win. Even I think it's the two. I don't know what game. I think the 2 times the Yankees have beaten the Red Sox this year were both at Yankee Stadium. and it was in games where they just out-homered the Red Sox. Like, if they don't hit home runs, the Yankees don't beat the Red Sox. That's how it's gone this year. So ideally, we match up with New York either here or there. But given how good Roman Anthony is at the top of the lineup, they can, dare I say, tread water and just figure out a way to not be the third wild card team. I would feel as confident in that first round matchup against the Yankees. I mean, again, I'd be more confident if it was at home, but I wouldn't feel super disappointed having to go to New York versus going into Houston.
Yeah, I agree. If our confidence is at like a 9 for Fenway, it's about like a 7.58 for going into New York. I agree wholeheartedly with that. I think we've had the Yankees number all year, and like you said, them winning is solely based on our pitching. Dropping the ball versus them actually going out and beating us. So I agree with that versus an actual good team in Houston.
Yeah. And hopefully they got the back. I think it was first. I don't know if it was first career or just only game this year that he's given up at least four home runs in a game. Three of them coming in one inning. He was hanging some stuff. Like, the velocity didn't look terrible, so I don't know if he just didn't have a feel for the breaking stuff. But it wasn't like it didn't. The velocity wasn't down enough that makes you go, is he fatigued? Is he hurt? You brought up a good point. He's past his season high for innings already. So I wouldn't be against skipping a start down the stretch, just to give him an extra day off and, save some of those bullets for the postseason. But, he's not showing signs of slowing down, but that feels like something you would not want to risk. Using him up too much. Obviously, I think last I looked, he was at 178-ish innings pitched.
Yeah.
He's got, at least three more starts coming up. So he's on the cusp of pacing out to 200 innings, which, that's what aces do. But, he doesn't look like he's slowing down, but certainly something you have to watch.
Well, it's interesting, like how things are going to play out for him because, they have Bayo and Giolito that they're going to have to rely on, down the stretch here. They got Tolley, who they seemingly want to give 6 to 8 days rest, supposedly in between starts. And now they got Crochet, who they want to maybe try to, stretch out and give him a little more time down the stretch here. And it's like, well, if you're going to do these things, like, who's going to start games, right? You got to, someone's going to start these games down the stretch.
And you can't just. I know Bernardino's been more good than bad as an opener. I think his ERA was like a low or mid 1 ERA as an opener prior to. Did he open the final game of the Cleveland series?
Yeah.
And so, prior to that, he had been pretty good. I know that game didn't go well for anybody in the bullpen, specifically Jordan Hicks, which
nothing goes well for Jordan Hicks.
No, nothing. Funny that he just mysteriously shows up with an injury, and they're like, but you can't. I think it was a monetary decision. Like, you can't do it. He's owed so much money that just putting him on the IL makes way more sense than doing something else with him. The nice thing, though, that you brought up, having to rely on Brian Bayo. I know that Giolito didn't pitch last year, but his workload doesn't overly concern me. It's more that he's just the consistency factor is bigger with him for me. Bayo, same thing. Bayo, the innings situation doesn't, is I would say a yellow flag. So his career high in innings was last year at 162 1/3. He's sitting at 146 2/3 now. So he projects to go past that. You figure if he gets 3 more starts, that's 18 innings. That's 164. Yeah, 164 innings. So it's just barely over his career high in a season. But he's pitching really, really well. Maybe, because Tolley's getting an extra day or two in between starts, maybe they can retrain the rotation and, maybe they can move Brian Bayo up a day and bump Eric Crochet back a day just to, help with the workload there. Again, Giolito didn't pitch last year because of Tommy John, but he's been a decent innings eater up until this point in his career. So not overly worried about his workload. Let me just see.
Yeah, I mean they're all ready to go. To kind of go back because I didn't really do too much on it. This team going down the stretch here is, no one in the AL necessarily scares me. Uh, Seattle doesn't exactly scare me. New York doesn't scare me. I mean, why
No,
would they at this stretch?
no.
Houston's a pretty good team. Like they're a
But
team that like.
Yeah, Houston's Houston. They'll turn it on. Like they will be a tough out like they are every year, even though
Yeah, exactly. Like they're a good team. That they're not going to be easy to beat. Like, but they're not like the daunting Houston team I think of when I think of years past. Detroit doesn't exactly scare me. No one like Toronto doesn't scare me. Like what
no,
like
there's
no
no
one AL
there's no juggernaut in the American League.
exactly. So when I look at this going into down the stretch here without Roman Anthony, even if Abreu was out another week or two, it's about getting healthy, getting into the playoffs. We'll see where exactly they kind of land, and whether it's wild card, if they can make a run for the division, whatever it is. But playoff wise, uh, a fully healthy Red Sox team, I think that they're right in the mix with any team in the AL at this point. Now, will they have a fully healthy Red Sox team? I
No.
guess maybe probably not for the divisional series at least, or the wild card series.
Yeah.
But even without Roman Anthony, they should have a really solid chance to compete and win each of these matchups. Like you said, Ben, I mean, like going up against if they have to go up against New York in a wild card series, like they're 8-2, I think, against New York this year. I believe that's correct, and they might have one more series later this month. How do you go into the playoffs? Unless they get swept the next round of the series, not feeling pretty comfortable about that. They'll line up their three best pitchers probably for that. As long as they're not fighting in the last day or two of the regular season, but they'll line up their pitching staff. You go Crochet, Bayo, and Giolito in a wild card series against the Yankees. You have to feel pretty damn comfortable. You have to feel like you're in a pretty good spot against them.
They do have 3 more games against the Yankees. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you have to feel relatively comfortable going into that series and saying, they've shown that they can beat them. They've shown that
and it's here too. It's not in New York.
Yeah, they've shown that their starters, being Crochet, Giolito, and Bayo, can all pitch up against them. I talked about like Bayo's last start against New York. That was one of the most impressive starts that I've seen from Bayo since he came up into Boston. The way he fought that game, it's easy to see Bayo go up and do it against, the Angels or the Athletics or the Orioles and stuff like that. It's, is he going to come out and show it up on, it was a night game against the Yankees. We knew he had his history of not going more than 6 innings. He's kind of blown past that the last, handful of months. He's broken through that. And he came out and I think he went 7 innings, 1-run ball, something like that. He showed up in one of the biggest stages of the game. So you have to feel comfortable going into that. And on top of that, they're a team that seems to kind of have. I don't want to necessarily compare them to the 2021 team because I think that this team has more talent if you include Roman Anthony. But they give a little similar vibe to that team where they things are just kind of hitting well. It's a team that really likes each other. They're playing well. Shout out Trevor Story for what he's done for this team this year. He's been downright huge, absolutely huge for this team this year. Speaking of that, we'll jump into this more, over the winter. I just wanted to give you a quick thoughts on this, you guys. He's going to opt out this year. Does he opt out? I mean, it's not a super strong free agency. There's going to be a few guys, especially if Bregman opts out. I think it's Schwarber, Tucker, and Bregman that will probably lead the way.
Yep.
Does he opt out? Like, assuming he finishes strong.
Did you say Kyle Tucker? Isn't Tucker a free agent?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I said
he's
Tucker,
Tucker.
Bregman.
You did say Tucker. Okay.
Yeah. Schwarber. What's he owed? Is he owed 22?
He owed $250, I think. And I believe the Sox can block it if they add a year to his deal. So that's even another question. It's like, all right, if he opts out, do the Sox dare like suck it back in? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So let's see. So opt out after 2025. And then it says, so it says if Story opts out, the team can opt him back in by adding a 7th year, which would be for 2028, age 35. So if he decides to opt out and they want to keep him, they would just have to basically say, we're going to give you a 3rd year, and it would become a 3-year. It would become a guaranteed 3-year deal for the last
3 years. Yeah.
I don't know what the money is.
It looks on Sport Track another $25 million. So turn into a 3-year $75 million deal. And so it'll be a very, very interesting decision on his part of, do you opt out? Because on the open market, right? What do you expect for someone like him to get? He's got a fascinating market if he opts out.
Yeah, I feel like he could be hit or miss. I feel like because his injury history in Boston, because this is his first legitimate healthy season since signing the deal, I could see teams looking at it and go, he's 32. I don't know when he turns 33, but he's 32. Let's see. He'll be 33. He'll be 33 in November. So you'd be signing him to – you'd probably have to give him a 3-year deal because he knows that if he opts out, the Red Sox can opt him back into a 3-year deal. So you'd probably have to be guaranteeing him a 3-year contract. But I don't know if teams would want to look at it and go, I don't know how much money he would make because of the injury history, because he's older. And it's not like the injury history is old. It's recent. He was injured the first 3 years that he was here.
Yeah, ever since.
So, like I could see somebody, buying in fully and being like, nope, like we think he's healthy. Everything looks good. The injuries he had in Boston were freak injuries that theoretically could be avoidable. Like last year, it was he tried to make a diving play in the hole and he popped his shoulder out of his socket. Like that's not his injuries aren't like soft tissue issues. I don't think. It was a shoulder one year, it was a wrist the year before. So I can see somebody buying.
The wrist was you got hit by a pitch.
Right. Yeah, it's not like it's not like he it's not like he pulls hamstrings running down to first base, 2 or 3 times a year. And so, I could see a team being like, here's 3 years and $30 million, but like I can't imagine he's going to get a ton more than he would on the open market.
No, he won't get a ton more. The question for me is whether, how does he want to play? Because could he get a team to give him, 4 years, even if it's like 4 years, $88 million, right? In his mind, is 4 years, $88 million a better deal than 2 years, 50? Maybe not, but
or 375, because he knows that if he opts out, if the Red Sox want to keep him, now he's looking at a 3-year, $75 million deal.
Correct. Yes. Part of the game is like, does he want to opt out, maybe force the Red Sox hand? But if he opts out, will he get an offer that beats 2 years, 50? I lean that he's going to opt in because I look at like what Bregman dealt with last year, right? Now, he supposedly did get like a 5-year offer from Detroit and stuff like that. But I look at like what Bregman dealt with last year, and I don't see a team really willing to beat what he has in Boston right now, money-wise. Now, there's a chance that he wants to just go somewhere else, and so he opts out and knowing that he can get a similar deal, and that's what he's happy with. But like, I don't really see him getting more than 2 years, 50 on the open market. Someone may give him a 1 year, $25 million deal, maybe 2 years up to 50, but I don't see 375 on the open market. I think that teams will really still probably want him to like show it another year before they would commit for another couple of years beyond that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's in his best interest for sure to opt in because, like you said, I don't see anyone giving him the same deal that he could get with the Red Sox if they opt him back in with that extra third year. Given his injury history, given his production just with the Red Sox outside of this year. Now, would I want that? I don't know because it's now you're locking yourself into 3 more years and you've really only seen it matriculate for 1 year. But yeah, I think people kind of get a little scared. You saw with Blake Snell this year. He was the first one to sign in the offseason because of how it was dragged on last year with the pitching and Scott Boras and everything else. And you brought up Bregman, good point. I think people are getting a little bit more wary of like what's out there, what they could get. There's a lockout looming supposedly as well. So like, what's that going to look like for contracts? So I think I could see him opting in. I think it's in his best interest. But again, what does that mean for his production?
We could also see him go to the Sox and try to rework the deal, right? And he says, instead of this 2 year 50 deal, how about we do something like this where it's a little bit give and take where, we come into a new 3 year, like $70 million deal with incentives to get it up to $80 million or something like that, or a 3 year, $66 million deal where like, if he doesn't play, it's a little bit less than the 3 year 75. But if he plays and plays well, then it can get up above the 75 million. Because right now, like this season, what he's provided, he's worth 25 million a year.
Totally.
Right. Like I have no problem giving him 25 million a year. What he's provided defensively, he's been good. He's a guy that's going to be putting up 25 and 25 right now, home runs, steals. Guy hasn't been caught stealing this year. Like you put up, he's going to be potentially putting up 27, maybe 28. There's an outside chance if he pushed it to really get to 30 bags this year. Like to do that and not get caught stealing is pretty damn good, especially in your 30s as a baseball player.
Yeah. And I was kind of thinking the same thing is maybe he goes to the Sox or the Sox go to him and figure out a way to be like, hey, like, can I get a little bit of a pay bump? Can we guarantee the third year? I'll get a little bit of a raise. But instead of it being, you guys opting me in and it's a guaranteed 25 million, maybe it's like, can we rework it where I get a guaranteed third year and I'll work with you on the dollars to your point where it's like, 66, 70, whatever, 70 million with escalators and incentives. Because the other part of it too is the Red Sox have to figure out, like Marcelo Mayer has been injured and missed the end of a season for 3 straight seasons at this point. Now, granted, this year is the first year that it's not a shoulder, but there's a little bit of maybe a small red flag or a yellow flag there that this is now his 3rd straight year that he needed season-ending surgery in August where he's not available. So now they have to wonder, okay, can we rely on Marcelo Mayer being an everyday shortstop on this team that we can move on from Story? Now, granted, I mean, who knows what, they've got other options. They've got Arias, who got promoted to AA late last week or early this week. I forget what the timeline was, but recently got promoted. So, I think that's going to factor into is, there's some big question marks. Like if Trevor Story opts out and walks, they have massive question mark at shortstop. So maybe they are willing to play ball and be like, hey, like we can give you a guaranteed third deal and maybe, maybe work with them on the financial piece.
Yeah. If I'm the Sox, I think my preference right now is that he just opts in, right? He just says, I'll play on the 2 year 50. In their mind, it's like, all right, like, if Mayer had come up this year and really performed well and stayed healthy, and Campbell had come up this year and performed well and everything was going good with it, like, yeah, it would be a little bit of a different story, but there's question marks on both of those ends, right? So we don't know, like the replacement for him isn't clear right now.
Right.
So I think the best preference would be to stick to the 2 year, $50 million deal. And if he was a little bit unhappy, I would even just, I would rather give him a little bit of a boost and say, like, we'll tack on an extra 3 million a year in incentives or something like that,
Yeah.
or bonuses if you hit at bats in a season. You hit 300 at bats, you get $100,000 bonus. 350, you get another 100,000, and you can do that every 50 at bats.
Right.
And that way he's a little bit happier. So maybe something like that happens. But that decision, in terms of opt-outs, opt-ins, playing the market, that has to be one of the most fascinating risk reward decisions of a athlete that I think you'll ever see, of how he's going to have to play this out.
Totally.
Is it's going to be incredibly. I would love to be a fly in the wall of, like, him making this decision, talking with his agent. Of course, his agent's going to be, through back channels, trying to get an idea of what his market will be. But it will be very, very difficult to really get a good idea in what he'll do. And then, honestly, kind of a similar thing with, we could kind of comment on this as we wait for Fitzy. Similar with Bregman. Bregman, there was a talk that passed that said he was going to opt out. He's got 2 years, $80 million on his deal. He faces a similar concept of, he did have an injury this year that wasn't. He doesn't have the same type of, like, label on him as Story does, but he definitely has, a little bit of a label on him. There was a little bit of concerns with his legs, and injury concerns going into last offseason, and he had another quad injury this year. Will teams be willing to give him a 4 to 5 year deal this year? Again, this offseason, I don't know. He's also come out and continuously talked about how much he loves Boston. He loves playing here. His family loves it here. And so, the way I quickly look at it is, like, I'm not very worried. I think he's going to end up back here, put it that way. I think that one way or another, he'll end up back here, whether it's, him opting in or them coming to a new 3 or 4 year deal. I think that he's going to really want to just stay here, and that I think Coral loves him and wants him here. I think the team loves him and wants him here, and it's just going to be like, let's get this done, and, like, not pinch over pennies and you know what I mean? Let's get you done. Let's get you staying here. He's been a perfect kind of role model for these young guys, clearly,
and he came out and said, because there was that leaked news about possibly opting out. He came out and said that, he and his wife both love it here. They thought they would love it here, but that they love it more than they kind of expected to, which is certainly a good thing. And so, hopefully, maybe the Red Sox can just preemptively go to him and say, hey, like, we know you want to be here. You're a cornerstone of this team right now. You're still a really good ball player, and you're a mentor for these younger kids. And just preemptively go to him and say, hey, like, let's rip up the existing deal and come up, and figure out a way that we can keep you here for another, 4 years, where you get the money you want, and we get the player that you are, for the foreseeable future. Like, that would be my ideal play out. Obviously, the second best scenario is he just opts in and maybe they figure it out later. But I would just love for them to just preemptively go to him and say, hey, like, we see your value, we see your worth. Like, let's get something on the books, a different deal that makes both of us happy and keeps you here.
Because he's not going to get $40 million a year on the open market, like on a long-term deal.
No, but I mean, I could see somebody going to Bregman and being like, what about, $4 and $88 million? Well, not 4 and 88, 4 and let's see,
120.
What did he get? 3 for 120 last year from us?
No, he got 4.
He got 3 and 120.
It was 3 and 120.
He got 3 and 120,
48.
and half the money was deferred starting in like 2031. But like maybe they go to him and say, hey, like why don't we do a 4-year, 120, 125 deal, and it's it's guaranteed money now versus you waiting for half of your contract 5 years from now.
I'd love to believe that they're going to do it. I firmly believe that he wants to stay here. That he loves Boston, loves the Red Sox. Obviously, we know he loves Cora and kind of all the young kids and being a mentor, veteran leader in the clubhouse. It's hard for me to see them being proactive with these type of contracts with a veteran guy who's already kind of had injury history, especially with, his you mentioned, I think, the soft tissue. It isn't like it was one of these freak, injuries like Trevor Story's had. He has now going back to 2021, I believe it was 2022 with his quad injury. Now that being said, on the flip side of that, they are kind of like Breslow does seem to have this like work in the background, work in the shadows type of mentality about his business, where all of a sudden we'll get a breaking news report from Passan at like 2:00 on a random Tuesday that they just re-signed him. So and there's no leaks about this at all. So I'm cautiously optimistic that they will get this done. I think from Bregman's point of view, he definitely would like to stay here and wants to kind of make it work out. It's just the John Henry thing. I don't trust him, and I don't think that like he's willing to give an aging veteran with injury history another 4 years. Well, I'm very hopeful that he does, but
he gave him 3/120 last year. My thought process is, I think that they, he was willing to take a little bit of a risk on Bregman last year. I think for many reasons he was willing to take a big risk on him, and now that he's here, that they should love him even more. He is back. He's finally here. We can welcome Fitzy to the show as we finish up, and he's looking some orange juice.
I had to go full Belichick meme since I was late to the party, boys. How we doing? We ready to raise the banner or at least get the season started on Sunday or what?
We're ready.
Absolutely. We're finishing up some Red Sox talk. What are your thoughts on Bregman and this? You think he's going to opt out and all that type of conversation?
Yeah, I'm not loving this, but don't forget this is kind of like welcoming in Steph Diggs to your wide receiver room and not expecting him to make things about himself or display diva-like tactics and tendencies. Like, you're dealing with the devil that is Scott Boras. He is always going to do everything he can under the evil red sun that he thinks he can control to get his client as much money as possible. And even with St. Bregman missing almost 50 games this season, the impact that he's had from coaching up players, being a positive vibe in people's ears, unlike Rafael Devers, buying people suits in the preseason, then of course the clutch play at third, at the hot corner, and at the plate as well. It makes all the sense in the world. You have to be pretty damn confident in your client and your own personal abilities for these guys to hive mind up and say, how do we feel about leaving $80 million guaranteed on the table? Let's do it. So I understand it. I think it sucks, but the Red Sox would be crazy to let the next person who's been a good fit, like Kyle from Waltham 4 years ago, walk away, especially considering how pivotal an adult guiding voice is for your Roman Anthony's, Christian Campbell's, Willie Abreu's, Marcelo Myers, and more.
Yeah. That's basically what we've been saying. Is like he loves it here. He's been a great fit. I think he ends up just finding his way back here, whether it's a rework deal, a new 3 or 4 year deal. I don't think he's going to find $40 million on the open market again, but
you've got all that money from Devers. You can figure you were going to pay him $40 million the next 2 years, right? So and just take like a third of what you were going to give Devers, add it to that, give him 5 for 160, and just say it's
Kyle from Waltham to bring him back.
Right, and just give Kyle a call, tell him to go play first base. Tell Tristan Casas there's a nail painting convention at the DCU Center in Worcester, and don't bother coming back. It's fine. We're good to go.
All right. Well, let's now that you're here, let's transition into some Patriots football. Obviously, we got week 1 here. I knew you were just doing some Raiders talk with the Raiders guy on your show. We'll start off with just a roundtable with the Week 1 matchup of the New England Patriots, Las Vegas Raiders. I almost said Oakland Raiders still to this day, but
it's okay. I still say I call them the Los San Diego Chargers just to make sure that I get the city they're currently in, but the city they never should have left into the name, because you end up you can call them the Oak Vegas or the Los Lokeland Raiders, whatever. Like I just say in full Chris Berman voice, Raiders. That way I don't care where they're playing. I just know who they are. And how much I hate them now for making Tom Brady wear that stupid white satin Raiders jacket like Mark Davis, son of a bitch.
If Kraft knew it was good for him, he would have gave Brady 10% of the Patriots.
Oh no, but instead he gave him a statue looking like Tom Brady was a 1968 Olympian protesting Gillette Stadium.
Yeah. All right. What are your thoughts, Fitzy, on Week 1, on how things match up there with the Raiders and how you see that playing out?
Well, there's the whole like we can go corporate style with the 30,000-foot view of just what the New England Patriots are going to be with new coach Mike Vrabel and the revamped line. Like there's the whole excitement, just like the fever pitch for wanting to see football all over again, seeing adults in the room, competent coaches, confidence restored on both sides of the ball, all your meeting rooms with your coordinators and beyond. So you're going to see a buttoned-up professional operation for the first time in, I hate to say it, guys, several years, because those last couple of years with Belichick, as Bill Burr was talking about, were truly like the Emmitt Smith on the Phoenix Cardinals years of Patriots football and his coaching tenure in the NFL.
Patricia as OC wasn't a good idea.
Oh my God. The reverse engineered offense of 2022. My God.
Yeah.
I would like to grab that playbook and just like Yoda did in The Last Jedi, like with the Jedi Temple, just burn it to the ground and stare at it till I see the last ember smoldering in the dirt. My God.
I want to read it. I want to read it first.
No, don't. That's like watching Matt, don't. That's like watching the video in the ring. 7 days later, you die. Don't. Don't do it.
Read my demise.
So there's the whole like 30,000-foot view you want to take. But then like when you get into the nitty gritties and specifics, guys, of this game, like Benny, Zach, I don't know if you guys are like super confident that like the Pats spent so much money, had that great draft. It is Vrabel, Drake and Josh should hive mind and go next level. Or if you see it the way I do, which is like, these are both two teams that like 9-8 would be an awesome season. And they may use Sunday as like a barometer or litmus test against each other.
Yeah, I'm kind of in both camps if I can do that. Like 9-8 would be a fantastic season given the fact that they've won 8 games the past 2 years. And they've had, as you said, just complete incompetencies at every position, every coach, every coordinator. It's been horrific, and Bill Belichick has been over the hump for 10 years. But I digress. Like, I think for us to go out and say, that the Raiders are a great litmus test, I think is true. Both have new, first-time head coaches for this particular team. Both similar in terms of their talent level. Obviously Genty and Travion Henderson are good running backs. I feel a little bit better about going into Week 1 if Gonzalez is going to play, but it looks like he's going to be out for definitely Week 1, maybe even Week 2. But they don't even have any receivers that scare me. I mean, Amari Cooper just retired, so now they have Jacoby Myers, who's good.
He's good.
He's good. He's a route runner. But we know who he is. Like, he was never someone who's going to break the game open. He was never going to go, run a 9 route and get 10 yards between the corner and him. So they're probably going to be a pretty run-heavy team, I would imagine. And then on defense, same thing. Max Crosby is going to give us fits for sure. But who else? Who else do we even have? So it'll be a good matchup in terms of 2 evenly matched rosters and coaches.
Yeah, I just came like Matt said. I just came off of the doing a preview pod with our company's sister Vegas Raiders podcast, and he gave me a couple of names to watch out for. Trey Tucker, their slot receiver. Pete Carroll loves him, pretty fast. They got this new, I think it's Dante Thornton. Now, Pats fans are terrified of any receiver with the last name of Thornton after what we went through the last couple of years, but kid's out of Tennessee, 6'5", 4.3 speed. Maybe Pete Carroll uses him the same way that he introduced Chris Matthews late in the first half of Super Bowl 49 and that guy gave us fits until they put Malcolm Butler on him. And Max Crosby usually lines up over right tackle, but I wouldn't be surprised if old pal Patrick Graham has him line up all over the place, and they do a lot of overloads and stunts and do things to confuse the rookie left side of the line. And now Will Campbell's on the injury report with an ankle injury. That sucks out loud. And their other edge defender, Malcolm Kuntz, is also sneaky good. And Benny, the one thing I think this week, tell me if you agree. I think the way that the Raiders are going to use a lot of like Genty, they have Raheem Mostert, Zamir White, that kid Dylan Laub from New Hampshire who I had a crush on. He's like Diet Burkhead. And then with that line, like I think this is going to be a great test on both sides of the line for the Pats.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of thought about, Will Campbell's injury popping up. I mean, obviously, even if he was fully healthy, how he would match up against the defensive front for Vegas. He seemed to be pretty good from what I saw in the preseason, as long as guys weren't bull rushing him. That was really where his, if you're going to, pick on the short arm issue, that's where he kind of gets into trouble because they can get into him before he gets into them. But he did a pretty decent job of redirecting guys. So, we'll see how they play it. But if they don't win the line of scrimmage, my concerns are that May's not going to have enough time to dissect the defense. Other than the front seven, the Raiders defense, I don't think there's any matchup nightmares that you feel like they have a guy who can absolutely take out somebody on our offensive side of the ball. But I think that these are two teams that should be well coached. I mean, obviously Pete Carroll has a ton of history, winning coach. Vrabel had some success. It'll be a better operation for us. I'd like to think that the Pats can take care of business at home, but if they can't beat the Raiders and they're not competitive, that's certainly not a good sign for us. If they're competitive with the Raiders, it's like, okay, you lose a 1-point game at home, but it was competitive start to finish, then you can at least see some light at the end of the tunnel and possibly development down the line. But there's a ton of volatility in how I think the first half of the season can go. So if they can get off on the right foot and be 1-0, not 0-1, that'd be a great start, and hopefully we're, coming up roses on Sunday.
I want to see where the approach is and how their game plan is, and not to go back to how Belichick used to play things out but they used to, he was famous for not letting one guy beat you, right? Defensively, Max Crosby is obviously the biggest pain in the ass to game plan for on their defensive side of the ball. So it'll be interesting to see how Vrabel plans things out. Obviously, we'll see how much McDaniels really has control of that offense. If they can limit him, whether it's chipping, we'll see how he lines up. Like you said, Fitzy, he's a little bit more would traditionally line up against Moses. Is he going to get flipped to the other side to go up against Campbell more often? We'll see how that plays out. But if they can limit him, we saw in the preseason in limited time, I thought May should have played notably more in the second and third game. But we're seeing May get rid of the ball faster than he did in prior games from last year. Obviously, that is McDaniels' offense, quick decisions, stuff like that. So, I think we're going to see a lot of that early on, a lot of, quick decisions, get the ball out of your hands as things ease up into the first half. But I really want to see them, start to take shots as the game progresses and stuff like that. But if they can limit Crosby, that will allow them to make be more aggressive. And if they can do that, I think the running game will get going. No one else on the defense necessarily scares me. I did like Kuntz. I wanted him in free agency. I was kind of disappointed that he ended up back to the Raiders.
Right, and they replaced Robert Spillane. They tried to replace him by poaching Christian Ellis, but the Pats matched the offer. So they replaced him with Devin White, who I think his better days are behind him. And I see Spillane as like the key. Sunday, you might be thinking like, oh, it's Carlton Davis, or it's Alex Austin because Jacoby Myers is so sure-footed and sure-handed, and Brock Bowers, who looks like Lex Luthor, the tight end these days. Now that he got rid of that that freaking like Nutrafol hair that he had.
Yeah.
He looks way
You know,
bad. Dude, that guy. Let's just all agree, best tight end since Gronk, and the guy has a chance to be like Canton worthy. If he can
absolutely.
keep this up, he is ridiculously good. And no matter how much the Pats game plan for him, he's going to be a factor on Sunday. But my key for the Pats D is Spillane. He's just got like
Yep.
he has to. Way back in the spring, I heard a ton of like, Spillane's going to be your favorite football player, and and half a game that counts. Like, watch this guy just get after it. If he can make sure that the middle of the field is maintained and they're not hitting him with quick runs, screens, bubbles, and these little tight end bursts, they'll have a chance. If Geno if the run game works and Geno's got his quick game going, might be a long one, boys.
Yeah, stopping Gentry is going to be huge, right? I mean, we'll see what he is because he has never played an actual regular season NFL game, but we know what they brought in defensively. Harold Landry, Spillane, they're two of the best defensive run players at their positions last year. Even Jack Gibbons is a guy that I don't know how much run he'll get early in the season, but I think he's going to be a guy that's going to play his way onto the field as the year goes on. If they could limit the run against a team like the Raiders here, they're going to be in a really good spot because, like you said, Bowers is good, Myers is a pretty good player, but like their offense as a whole doesn't necessarily scare you a ton. And like you mentioned, Spillane, I think he's going to be a guy that the Patriots fans love. I think he's like Bentley on steroids of like what you dream Bentley could be. A little bit mix of like the days of Mayo and
Right.
I don't want to say Hightower. Hightower.
No, he's kind of his own thing. He's kind of his own thing. He looks like every bouncer in Boston that tossed you out of a bar in Brighton when you were visiting your friend, at the Burn or the Purple Shamrock, like just somebody like if you like he'll be nice to you if you don't mess with him. The second you come into his zone, like you're gonna get it. So and then on offense as well, like two things. I want to see, Josh loves the third down, the little quick receivers. So as much as I want to, since I'm such an Efton Chisholmite, I want to see him get involved. That's probably not going to be the case. It'll probably be more Pop Douglas. And I just want to see the backs that, the Patriots offense under McDaniels. This is now McDaniels 3.0. It flourishes when you use your Shane Vereen's or your Danny Woodheads or your Kevin Falks or your James Whites on wheels, in the flat bubble screens, dumps, and whatnot. So the combination of Travion Henderson as a primary back / pass catcher and Antonio Gibson, who still has that collegiate wide receiver speed, but plays like a back. Like, I think that's where you set the Raiders up for your intermediate and deep strikes by deploying those guys and Steph Diggs, who I do think is going to play well. For everyone that's like, well, I didn't see much in the preseason, so this guy's washed. No. Like, if you heard him talking this week, he still has that dog in him, and I think you're going to see it on Sunday. And that's kind of nice because I'd rather him shove it in someone else's face than score for the Bills, then run over to the sidelines and tell everyone at Gillette Stadium to S his D. That was a hot mic on CBS, by the way, a couple of years ago.
I do think Gibson's is going to have a pretty notable role in this offense. And it's a pretty safe role because I think he fits McDaniels and what he likes to do very well.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very, very well-rounded back. Obviously, we saw what McDaniels has done with receiving backs over the years. So I really like to see Gibson. Stevenson's going to be the guy that as soon as Henderson finds his comfort in this offense, that Stevenson's playing time should go down the toilet. Never mind if he gets a case of the fumble rooskies again. His playing time will go out the door. But I do want to do a little bit of over-unders here for the season. I got 4 of them. There are not a ton because the sports books have no idea what to do with the running back situation. I couldn't find anything for Stevenson, nothing for Henderson as well. They do have Diggs at over under 750 and a half yards. Given obviously is he the wide receiver 1 all that. Where do you guys see that playing out? Do you see him getting over that benchmark of 750?
I do. I think. I mean, there was a breakdown. I think I saw it on Twitter somewhere of like all the targets that Drake May has had. This, I mean, again, that's camp in his preseason or whatever. But it's Steph Diggs is number one across the board in terms of who he's been going to. He's that true wide receiver one that number one we've been clamoring for years that Bill just would refuse to get because he didn't like dealing with people that had an ego as well. But he also is like you said, Fitzy. He still has that dog in him. He's still like his leg injury is it looks back. He's making cuts. He's quick. He's in and out of his breaks as quick as looked in the past. I think Diggs is going to look to him a lot. I think Diggs is going to look to him on first, second, third down. That's his first read. And Pop Douglas had 600 yards last year. If he can do it, then Stephon Diggs can definitely get 150 more yards, and I think he's going to push for 1,000.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. As long as, all indications are that he's healthy. So if he doesn't get hurt again, I don't think he's at a point in his career where you would expect him to be that much of a drop-off. I mean, prior to tearing his ACL last year, he had six or seven consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. Now, granted, I get he's 31 now, so it's different story. But I feel like an ACL tear at age 30 after 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons. And I'd have to go back and project it out. I don't know how many games he'd had last year. I think he was on pace for another 1,000-yard season last year before he tore his ACL. So I mean, barring a situation where he just, another freak injury or not, but unless he gets hurt again, I don't really envision a scenario where he doesn't get, well over 750 and push for another 1,000-yard season.
Yeah.
Especially given what McDaniels runs for an offense, and not to steal the thunder from Diggs, I'm kind of curious to see how Kyle Williams fits into this scheme. His best asset is with the ball in his hands after the catch. He's twitchy. He's got good feet. I know he had some drop issues at Washington State last year, but the speed is real. Maybe take it with a grain of salt, but he did leave Travis Hunter in his dust on a go route in a game against Colorado State, against Colorado last year. So the speed is real, like the physical attributes are there. And, he screams the guy who can just dominate in a screen game, quick slants over the middle, similar route tree to what you saw with Edelman. Edelman was very good in and out of quick breaks, was not afraid to go over the middle. I mean, obviously we don't know if Williams is willing to do that. We'll see. But, just a situation, love to see how he fits in. But I think that with the versatility of the way that other wide receivers and Travion Henderson and Gibson can play in the passing game, I feel like that's going to open stuff up for Diggs to where, you don't have to rely on him so much. But I think that it'll allow him to exploit matchups because, there's other guys that do so many different things for the Pats offense that I think Diggs can take advantage of that.
Yeah, I'm excited for Kyle Williams too, and my favorite thing to say about him, we'll see. I think it's going to take a while for him. I wouldn't expect early returns. Patience with the rookie will probably be the long play.
Yeah.
But my favorite thing that we heard all draft season long was, Kyle Williams has maybe the sexiest release package in all of college football this year. And I just kept hearing about it. Then you saw it because he put those moves on Travis Hunter, and I called him for a while like the timeline king because everything that I kept seeing on my timeline was just somebody raving about him or him saying the right thing or him making the right moves at training camp. So I'm hype on him, but I think it's going to come over the long haul. As far as Steph Diggs, I don't want to say it like I'm trying to sell you something in an infomercial late at night, but for just 45 yards a game over 17 games, Steph Diggs can give you quality returns on a 750 over-under prep. That's a no-brainer to me. And I would also bang the over on his 4.5 touchdowns prop as well. So I'm in on all the Steph Diggs props. Is he going to have 2020, 2021 in Buffalo Steph Diggs numbers? No. But can he have Houston-like numbers last year where he had almost 500 yards in the first 8 games and 6 touchdowns? Absolutely.
Yeah, that's basically I mean, you guys are all kind of in the same ballpark of where you're standing. It's like if he's healthy for 17 games, I don't see why he can't get to that number. Kyle Williams, you hit it on the head, Fitzy. He doesn't really have a spot early on. I think their game plan essentially for him is he'll get eased in, and I think that they look at this Dig situation where it's going to be a 1 year stay, most likely, and ideally Kyle Williams takes over at his spot next year, and can kind of just take the reins in that
Learn
spot.
from learn from always there are two, a master and an apprentice. So learn from your Sith Lord and figure out a way to be a bad man out in the field.
But 750, like you said, that's what 40 something yards a game.
40,
like
it's literally 45 yards a game. That's it. If he's healthy for a full season,
it's very attainable. He's not a guy that's generally a true deep bomb guy anymore. He's a little bit more of a savvy route runner on the inside now that can fit more McDaniels' offense. I think that he can definitely get 5 to 7 targets a game, and that can result in 45 yards a game, pretty efficiently. So I like that over. If I had to put an exact number, I think he fits into that like 850 to 900 yard range by the end of the year.
Great spot.
I do think as a whole, like they're going to be if assuming health for everybody, which is almost impossible, but it's going to be a pretty balanced offense in terms of like statistics. Everybody's going to get a little bit of everything. I think Booty's going to put up a little bit of numbers. Douglas is going to put up a little bit of numbers. The running backs, who knows what to predict with the final numbers there. But speaking of the one guy that's going to be putting those numbers to all of them, Drake May, his passing number, 3,275 and a half passing yards. Felt like it was a little low. Are you guys hitting the over like I am on that? Or do you feel like I am kind of just overthinking it right now? It feels like that's a smash over in my opinion. I know they're going to be a little bit run heavy to probably try to establish the run game in and game out, but I think that can hit pretty comfortably. How do you guys think?
I mean, yeah. If he had played 17 games based on his per game averages last year, he doesn't hit that 3,275 yard mark. To hit that quick math, I think he has to average 193 yards per game to get there. So I mean, you'd like to think so. I mean, obviously, rookie jitters, pretty poor supporting cast in terms of skill position players last year. You'd like to think so. I don't know how confident I would hammer the over. I mean, I'd like to think he can get there, but I don't know if I'm rushing to a sports book and going all in on him hitting, 193 yards a game guaranteed week in and week out. Just because
you know what, I'm going to do that right now, just because you told me not to.
Yeah,
I mean, usually
we're just raised that way. That's why you tell me not to. Fine, I'm gonna, F it. I'm gonna.
And I think backwards from most people. So if I say one thing, I'm probably wrong. But I mean, just on the surface, I kind of feel like, 193 yards a game, I feel like should be pretty easy to do for, a league average type QB. So I'd like to think so, but who knows? We'll see. I mean, Matt, you're right. They're going to be run heavy, so we'll see.
I think if he throws for 5,000 yards, this season is going sideways. Like he should between 175 and 220 yards a week. Don't forget, Tom Brady later in his career became a passing machine, but that's because they struggled for RB1s more often than not. And if you had the comportment of small to mid-sized to Gronk-sized receivers that he did, and you were as dominant in processing and dissecting the field, that's what you do. But I want Drake to just dial it back a little bit. And yeah, look right there, 200 yards a week. That's all you got to do. 200 yards a week. Like it seems to make sense. I think he's got that. The 19 and a half touchdowns prop. Oh, please. Just like I'm freebasing that. I am filling it. I'm filling a bathtub and jumping all over it. I'm handing it out on the street corner wearing nothing but a string bikini. Like everybody should get in on that because that's literally
that was gonna be my next one. Of
okay,
where you guys stand on the. No, you're good. Yeah. We could join it into with each other.
Yeah. Oh hell yeah! 19 and a half touchdowns. I mean, if look at this. If you get, I'm not even looking. If Drake May gets to Jaden Daniels' numbers last year, minus the 800 something rush yards and the 9 rushing touchdowns, but let's say he rushes for 5, gets you 6 on the ground, throws for 3,500 yards and 24 touchdowns. So it's like part Jaden Daniels, part Mac Jones from 2021. Great season, signs of progress, and everyone is meeting each other at the draft duel or the Fan Kings window to cash their tickets in January.
Yeah, I'm happy you brought Mac Jones up because I was just looking at his stats. If he can get to 3,800 yards in 2021, Drake May has no excuse not to get to 3,200 or whatever the prop was. And then he had 22 touchdowns on top of that. He's getting that this year for sure. So, and it's the same OC, better receiving core, better running, better offensive stats too. Or
yeah,
running backs, even Ramondre Stevenson's still there. There's no excuse for Drake May not to get to those numbers, both of them.
So long as this offensive line doesn't get him killed.
Yeah, and I'll take 4,000 total yards and 30 touchdowns any day of the week.
Oh,
all right. Last one here. For the season, 8.5 wins. I know we talked about 9 and 8 as a success. I know we see 10 and 7 predictions, 8.5 wins. Fitzy's going into hiding right now. Do we see the over here? They got a little easy schedule, but 8.5 wins. Fitzy, where are you at on that?
If you were talking to fresh off of the draft Fitzy a couple of months ago, who was chock full of all that Vrabel spirit, optimism, and drug-addled fanticipation, I would have told you like 10 and 7, 11 and 6. Get out the way, Josh Allen. You better watch out because Josh Allen 2.0 and the new look Patriots are coming for you. I'd have said, yeah, Patriots bang that prop, and the Pats will see you in January for meaningful football games. Now reality has crept in. Depth is an issue. You're gonna see that there's still a lot of people trying to figure out what they're doing on the field. The coaches know what they're doing, and I think a lot of these signs of him moving on from Bourne and Peppers and whatnot tells you they need to see what they have in a few of the guys that they kept, because they certainly kicked a lot of the guys to the curb, and in all the new guys that they paid for or drafted as well. So I was all over the over earlier on, but now I've settled in at 8 and 9, but an incredibly satisfying, growth-filled, optimism-inducing 8 and 9 season as well. That's not going to have you saying like, oh, well, they could have won this game and that game and been a wild card team. Like there's a couple of teams that are 2 seasons beyond the Patriots. I trust in Josh and Vrabel enough to punch it and go to warp speed this offseason and really challenge for the playoffs next year. So just barely going under at 8 and 9.
Fair enough. All right, you guys.
I'm over, but similar 9 and 8. Like if we can do that, like I said before, that's equal, right around equal to your win total last 2 years. Much better roster, much better coaching staff, much more competent coaching staff, and certainly someone who has his finger on the pulse in a way that will actually provide benefit in a way that Gerard Mayo just was completely lost last year. Better scheme, better team, better players overall. 9 and 8 going over.
Yeah, and then don't forget the schedule gets tough down the stretch too.
True.
Yeah, the end is tough. I'm kind of at 9 wins. I've said for a little while, I was, same with you, Fitzy. Like, right out of the draft and free agency, I was, super gung ho and pumped. I think if everything goes perfectly, just everything clicks, no major injuries. Schedule, I think the ceiling of this team is 11 wins. I just don't see that being super realistic. I think they're more of a 9-win team. I think they'd have to get lucky a couple times and everything would really have to go perfect. You're talking Drake May, 4,000, 4,500 passing yards, 30 plus touchdowns. I don't necessarily see it, but, I would say over with 9. But again, I'm looking forward to the development of the young guys in this roster, and that, maybe we should be sending some postcards out to Buffalo and, tell them to, make sure they're looking over their shoulder because we're coming for them next year.
Exactly. And don't forget, it was late in year 2 of Josh Allen's career that he got rid of the turnovers, got rid of the interceptions, and dialed in and became, thanks to Dayball working him night and day, the same way Josh has been doing now, that he started to become what we saw. And then in year 3, the full comportment of his superpowers came out, and he's never looked back.
That's kind of why I do like McDaniels as a great fit for him. Yeah.
It's all coming together, boys.
Exactly. There it is.
I'm in the same boat, though. I think 9 wins is where I'm at, where it's really just a schedule. If they had like a middle of the pack strength of schedule as a whole, I think I would be leaning more on the 8 side. But they do have a pretty light schedule as a whole, so I'm leaning on the 9 wins. But all right, that's going to wrap it up for us this week. Fitzy, I appreciate you joining us.
Hell yeah. You only get to preview the season one time. You only get to kick off the campaign one time. You only get to be the new coach one time as well.
Exactly.
And the weather's going to be beautiful. You can already smell the chicken wings in the Ken's Italian steak marinade, the steak tips. You
got the same role this year down there in Foxborough?
Sadly, no. I got kicked to the curb by the Pats a little while ago.
Oh, that's
man. I was having such a great time on the podcast. Thanks, Matt.
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I'll still be doing the afternoon show at WEI afternoons 2 to 6 every day with Big Ted and Andy. 6 Rings post game show Sunday nights on WEI, and of course all of my usual in-game analysis, nonsense, bad takes, and more on the IG, TikTok, and Twitter. That's at FitzyGFY. Why? Because I love yous.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Take care. I appreciate it. Until next time, we'll raise the banner.
Thanks, Fitzy.
Take care,
Thanks,
guys.
See you guys. Thanks, guys.
Pats.
Go Pats. All right. All right. That's good. Oops.